The manhwa starts inside of a fitness center in Seoul. Inside one of the staff room, we see a man named Choi Kang-hyuk live streaming. He goes by Best Gym Rat TV. Khan says he's going to do a mukbang today, then starts to pig out. He says it's good, then takes a sip of his beer. I'm sure you can tell from his body that he enjoys working out. He wasn't always a gym rat, but he was heavily injured in a deployment during a special forces mission, and he started doing physical therapy but fell in love with trying to figure out what was optimal for the body. He ended up becoming a Chad personal trainer and focused on rehabilitation. For those who are wondering why he's doing a mukbang, it's because of COVID. In order to keep up with the cost of the gym's maintenance, he ended up trying streaming, although the profits weren't good enough to maintain all 5 gym locations. He does his outro to all of them, saying to like and subscribe. He instantly sighs after he ends the stream. He says he's worried about tomorrow. He ate so many calories and he wants to work out, but it'll be hard because of the alcohol. He starts to wonder how things got like this. It jumps to a doctor telling him that he's balding due to a high amount of stress, which hurts him. The doctor says if he doesn't de-stress, his body will continue to break down. Khan asks what he means, and the doctor says he'll become bald. Khan doesn't want to turn into a Korean Johnny Sins, so that's why he's resting so much too. He says he doesn't know what to do. He starts to scroll on his phone and says, "Not this one." We see that he's looking at Murim novels. He grew up with his grandparents, and he would often go to the nearby bookstore and read them. He spots a familiar work from an author named Gaejian, and that there's a new one about a Shaolin monk. He says this is unique, and the synopsis is that Mujin, the protagonist, martial artist. He clicks on it to start reading and instantly finds himself hooked. He says he really feels relaxed, and then he starts to wonder when the last time he relaxed like this was, saying it's like he was back to being a kid. He falls over saying that he's sleepy, and while he's laying there, his phone screen begins to light up. Then he hears someone trying to wake up Mujin for the morning workout. Kang raises up and looks up to see a bald head and a Shaolin in uniform as a little boy says they need to hurry up or else they'll be yelled at. Kang asks the kid how he got into his house and the kid asks what he means, saying he's older and bigger than him. Kang is 180 centimeters and 8% body fat, so he's confused. He asks the kid if his eyes are okay and looks around wondering why he's in his house, but he quickly realizes that he is not in his house and he's confused. Then he touches his head to see he's bald. He stands up wondering where the hell he is and why he's bald. Then he remembers the kid called him Mujin, and says it's the same as the novel he was reading. He wonders why he's here and why he had to lose his muscles. He quickly says it must be a dream. The kid says they'll really be late, and Kang, we'll call him Mujin from now on, stands up and says he's an adorable kid. They start to run off and he says he'll enjoy the situation since it's a dream. An older man yells, saying being late first thing in the day they need to be taught a lesson. He tells Mujin and the kid to take their places. Mujin says it feels so real for a dream. The man says they'll start with the horse stance first, and Mujin looks around to see everyone shaking like after a bad batch of Taco Bell. But he says they'll hurt their knees like this. Do proper exercises due to the rehabilitation training, so he understands how important the lower body and core are to bodily health. There were times he saw trainers teaching the wrong technique and that they would focus on the upper body and ignore the core, so he can tell their posture will lead to issues in the future. Their backs are too rounded and their legs are too spread. The man yells, saying the lower body is the foundation of martial arts. He says if they aren't able to maintain balance with their lower bodies, they can't properly put any strength into punching or their staff techniques. Mujin says if he knows all of this, why is he letting them have such poor posture? He grits his teeth since it's a dream. He won't stand by. He yells, saying they don't know a single thing about proper exercise. The older men and all of the other students look in disbelief. The kid from earlier asks him what's wrong, then the older man asks why he's interrupting a training session with yelling. Some of the other older men too ask if he's doing this so he doesn't have to train, saying it's not befitting of a Shaolin disciple. Mujin says he wonders if it's because it's a martial arts novel, but he can feel their energy just from them shouting. Even so, he doesn't plan to back down, saying he just pointed out it was flawed and that it's way easier than having to deal with dumb members in real life. The man asks him if he's saying that the Shaolin training is wrong. Mujin says this dream is hell realistic, and he'll play along by speaking like a martial artist. He tells the man that if they keep training like they are, When they get older, the cartilage in their knees will be damaged. The man says it's an excuse made by the weak. Mujin asks what he means, saying that martial arts is for the weak to train their bodies and mind, but now he's saying it's not something for the weak to learn. Another man steps up, saying the way the Shaolin trains is different from what he said. They train in martial arts to achieve enlightenment. Mujin says he sees and asks if they are saying the Shaolin isn't a place where the weak can obtain enlightenment. The man quickly stammers, saying no, they train harshly to train their minds. The mind is weak, so they seek comfort in times of difficulty and evil, and the training is to make it easy to endure through this. Mujin says he guesses their minds only need to be trained while they are young is practically what they are saying to him, since what he's saying is that in order to train their minds, it's fine to damage their knees when they are young, since once they are old, they won't need to go through times like that. The other students start to chatter, wondering if this is all true. Then Mujin points at a much older man, saying he wonders how much he's gone through to still not have obtained enlightenment. The dude wonders why the hell this kid is so crazy to say that to the first class disciple Ha-Young. Then Ha-Young shouts and causes the students to cover their ears. Mujin says that's a lot of pressure. All of the students look towards Ha-Young, and he begins to walk to Mujin, saying he's heard everything he said and like what the second-class disciple said, the martial arts of a Buddhist group is usually to train oneself. However, their martial arts are different. Mujin asks how Ha-Young says their martial arts are used to rescue the masses. They use them to protect others from evil and the demons that harass them. Mujin sighs, asking if they are just damaging their knees to protect others. Ha-Young stares at him, saying if they leave him be, he'll be a bad influence on the other students, but that the grown-ups cannot punish a young monk personally, so there's one option left. He tells Mujin to prove it himself. He points forward, saying he wants him to win against those who learn from the Shaolin training method to prove his point. Mujin asks who he'll be fighting, saying surely not a first-class disciple. Ha-Young says it would only be fair if he fought someone who joined at the same time and gets Mugung to step forward. Ha-Young says if what he said is true, in 7 days from now, he will spar with Mugung to prove himself. Mujin says the guy is in a different weight class, saying this is just a mockery of it being called fair, and mockingly says that he's an honorable senior. He agrees to the conditions, saying he'll do that, as there's no way he'd lose to a kid. They'll see in 1 week. For now, Ha-Young says he's clearly taking the hard path. Amipa, it's a Buddhist saying. He tells the rest to get back to training. The kid from earlier asks Mujin why he's doing this, saying to just apologize. We finally learn the kid's name is Muyo. The other students stare at Mujin with annoyed looks, calling him impudent. Ha-Young says he'll see him in a week. Mujin starts to sweat while performing squats instead of doing the horse stance. A second-class disciple asked him why he was doing it, but he told him Ha-Young allowed him to. Ha-Young tells the man to leave him alone too. He smiles and continues squatting while telling the rest their knees are going to hurt a lot in the future. He says they are so young, asking who will take responsibility if their knees are damaged. Ha-Young gets annoyed but tries his best to remain calm and ignore the talking. Mujin trained for 2 hours, so now it's time to go munch on some protein. But he doesn't understand the issue he's about to face. He looks down at his food, asking if this is everything they are eating, as Shaolin monks are all vegetarians. While it's natural to be a vegetarian at the temple, he was puzzled since he didn't think about this. He wonders where the hell he'll get his protein. Then he begins to wonder why he can smell the food in his dream. He says it smells good, even though it's only vegetables. But in the end, it doesn't matter if that's all there is. He starts to shake, saying this is child abuse. They tell him not to talk but start to yap, saying this is too harsh to only provide vegetables. The second-class disciples tell him to stop talking during mealtime, saying this is disrespectful, and one of them says he'll teach him a lesson. Mujin wonders why the dude's angry since he's the one who should be pissed. They need protein. He grits his teeth, saying he won't let his training go to waste. A man opens the door and starts to laugh. Everyone looks up to see him, and the second-class disciple shouts, saying Hall Leader Hyunmun, he takes care of the food here. He looks at Mujin, says he must be hungry, and if the food isn't enough, he'll get more. Mujin says there's enough food, and Hyunmun asks if he wants more of the side dish. He decides to be generous and overlook his grumbling. Mujin then asks if he has any chicken breasts. Everyone is outraged, asking what the hell he's talking about. Muyo says he's been acting strange, asking if there's something wrong with his head. Mujin says that they need protein, they have to eat it. He looks at Muyul's eyes to see himself and starts to realize things are strange. He gets tired from exercising, he can smell the food, he begins to wonder if this is reality. He quickly says he has to do something about the situation since if he's truly a young monk in the temple, he needs to think of something appropriate to say. Now he bows his head, saying he's acted weirdly since he's hungry. He just misspoke. Hyunmun says he must have just been tired from training. Mujin then asks if he can have more beans and mushrooms. Hyunmun is speechless and says he's definitely crazy. Whether it's reality or not, Mujin knew he needed protein. It jumps to him messing with his brush in class, saying he can't believe they are studying Buddhist scriptures. He starts to think about the what if, saying even if he's in the world of the novel, how on earth will he get back home? Then he wonders if he'll get out when the story is completed. He says based on that perspective, it's not bad at all. He's the protagonist, so he has exceptional talent. The Shaolin Temple is the strongest among the Orthodox Alliance. While he's deep in thought, he spills his ink and screams. He realizes he was loud and looks up to see the other students in disdain. He says that it would seem like he's been marked by the others, but it's too late to change things. He'll just win the spar and get acknowledged. Then scene shifted to Ha-young asking Hyunmun if he's serious, and he laughs, saying he's a unique child. Ha-young apologizes on his behalf. Then Hyunmun asks what he thinks about Mujin. He says that they'll find out in 7 days if Mujin is correct or not. Hyunmun laughs, saying that's truly a great idea. They can't punish a disciple because of their thoughts, so they can just prove their point by testing it. He also says that he's heard that Mugung is one of the most competent disciples among the new disciples. The temple recruits hundreds of kids every year, but most drop out and they end up with only 10% of the original number, which is why the other disciples or elders don't generally know the names of the new monks. But Mugung was a rare case, as they all knew who he was. Ha-young says Mugung will teach him a good lesson. Then the scene shifted to both of them walking up to the middle of a platform as a week has passed since they agreed to spar. Ha-young tells both of them to get ready for the fight. It cuts back to Muyul asking Mujin what he's doing. He says that he's stretching. Muyul asks what that is, and Mujin explains it in martial arts terms, calling it tendons extension technique. Of course, we all know what stretching is in the modern world, but within the novel, it's not that well known, especially the benefits of the increased range of motion. Mujin says he should give it a try. Some other kids talk about it as Muyul starts to stretch under Mujin's guidance. Then they hear other kids talking about Mugung. Then they see him punching the air. The kids say he's incredible, and you can hear snapping sounds from his punches. Mujin says if he gets hit by that, he'll be in deep trouble, and he wonders how he's going to beat him within this kid's body. But he has an idea, saying he just needs to use his size to his advantage. Ha-young says it seems like Mujin wasn't just trying to escape training. While he didn't listen to the others, he was still training in his own way. He's training with a tree, saying he's practicing to take down Mugung. Instantly, Muyul asks how him rubbing against a tree will help. Ha-young looks down at him and chuckles, saying Mugung will teach him a great lesson. Mugung is happy that Ha-young is acknowledging him and apologizes to Mujin, saying he'll trample him. But then he sees Mujin throwing it back as he's loosening up his joints before their spar starts. Mujin asks Ha-young if they can start immediately. They both get annoyed, saying he is acting tough. He starts to step forward, saying he'll show him. He says he's ready to start too and that he'll show him the punches he's been training for the last 3 months. It starts, and Mujin runs straight at him. This startles Mugung, and as Mujin gets closer, Mugung tries to back away from him. He punches straight at his head, but it gets dodged. Everyone is surprised. Instantly, Mujin uses the dodge trajectory to grab onto Mugung's leg. He says he can't use the martial arts he's trained since he's from the special forces. He could kill the kid accidentally. So the most efficient way to take him down will be with a tackle. They fall to the floor after the spar started. The time it took for Mugung to be subdued was just a little over a second as he gets put into an arm bar. The students ask what's going on and wonder if Mugung can get out of this. Some of them are worried, saying it is impossible for him to be subdued so quickly and be in such pain. Mugung wonders what the hell is going on here. The second-class disciples begin to give Mugung some advice. But even though they don't know what an armbar is, they can tell it's bad. They know exactly how painful it must be for his arm. Mujin calls out to him, saying if he resists, his arm will break, so just surrender. The second-class disciples still try to tell him to get up, but Mujin assures him that if he exerts any more strength, he will snap his arm, so he needs to give up immediately. Mugung starts to grunt as his arm gets closer and closer to snapping, and then starts to just cry. Mujin is surprised, and so are the other kids. Mujin quickly lets go, saying he's sorry, and they all turn towards Haiyung, asking him what they should do now. Mujin helps Mugung get up, asking why. They had to make 2 kids fight, and Mujin is declared the winner. We learn that the chain punch is one of the 8 extremities fists, which uses the entire upper body to generate powerful force, allowing you to quickly defeat your opponent. It's known for being very powerful. Mugung has the most proficiency among the younger monks. Even the second-class disciples were impressed by Mugung's chain punch, yet he pathetically lost without any form of resistance to some weird techniques. Mugung keeps crying, saying that this is unfair. Mujin asks what he means. Mugung says he charged as soon as they started using something that wasn't the chain punch. He shouts, saying he can win against anyone in a fair fight. Mujin tries comforting him but messes up his name, which made him cry more. The other disciples say that Mugung has a point. Mujin turns around and sees them. They say that one should use the Shaolin arts when sparring here, saying he broke the rules. Mujin wonders what kind of ridiculous ideology that is. The disciple then asks why he didn't use the chain punch. He says if he had used the chain punch, the fight would have lasted for longer, and they could have gotten more injured, so he just prioritized making the duel quick. He said he did make him cry, but he didn't leave a single physical injury on his body. They say that's not nonsense since it wasn't a Shaolin art. He says they are the ones talking nonsense. They struggle to rebuttal since the chain punch was defeated so easily by some strange technique. At that, they don't want to admit it, but they are just refusing to acknowledge he lost. They don't want people to doubt the Shaolin arts, or that the new disciples might be discouraged and leave. They look back at Haiyung, wondering what the plan is, but they see him smiling at the whole situation. Haiyung calls out to him, asking if he truly did that technique just to not cause him harm. Mujin says yes. Haiyung says that is the true essence of Shaolin and smiles, saying he's the winner. Everyone is surprised by this. However, the reason his skill was more effective was because the opponent's level was that of a loser. The ultimate reason they learn martial arts is to take down evil and the demonic heads who've learned martial arts. So he'll show the true essence of Shaolin, the real power that can take down their enemies. He orders the rest to bring him a boulder. They bring one over. I think that's a big demonstration of their power. They start to wonder if he's going to break the rock with his fist, and Haiyung tells them to watch closely. This is the true power of the chain punch. He takes a deep breath and then ready himself, channeling his energy into his fists, then exhales upon punching the rock. The rock begins to crack and shatters as he punches a hole through it. The rock shatters to the ground, and everyone is pigging out of their gourds. Haiyung looks smug and turns after receiving all of their compliments. Even Mujin is stunlocked and says, "Whoa." He starts to grin, saying, "That's a real martial artist." He says, "This is how it should be. One hit being enough to break open a mountain. One swing can take down hundreds of enemies. A single punch putting a hole through someone." Then he realizes something. He says that Haiyung mentioned overpowering the enemy without harming them. Haiyung says yes like it's a question. Mujin points out he broke the boulder into pieces, and they all look at it and realize it doesn't make sense. Now they are thinking about it, so nobody could say anything. Later that day, we see another man named Hyun Sung talking about the fight with Haiyung. Then Haiyung says Mujin may be rather arrogant, but he trains his chain punch the most out of the students. He's worried though. Hyun Sung asks if he's worried that he's only training the chain punch to learn its weakness. He says yes, saying it could be bad if Mujin is a spy of one of the unorthodox sects or the demonic cult. Of course, Mujin is just a modern-era gym rat. Hyun Sung says he probably isn't, and he wouldn't do something so eye-catching if he were. Haiyung suggests maybe it's reverse psychology, but Hyun Sung tells him not to worry. He's just a new disciple, and they'll find out over time if he's a spy or not. But he has an idea and says maybe he's from a martial family. Haiyung says it makes sense, as he doubts Mujin came up with those ideas by himself about the training. Hyun Sung says the greatest figure in a child's life is their father. Maybe he wanted to. But says since he defeated Mugung, he'll become more arrogant, wondering what to do about him. But then cooks something up, saying they can leave him to Biob Gang. Haiyung asks if he means the one in the discipline court. He says no, he's in the Arhat Hall instead. They agree it's a good idea. Then it jumps to some of the second-class disciples saying good night to one another. Then one of them spots something that shocks him. He says they should go somewhere else, and they look around to see what he's scared of. They see a man doing the horse stance, and we learn that it's none other than Biab Gang. They wonder what he's doing here. One of them says he's doing the horse stance, and the rest say no and ask why he's not at the training ground. They say he must have wanted to keep training without rest. They all start laughing, saying there's a reason he's called the Mad Dog. Dude is obsessed with training. They laugh, saying the discipline hall is a good fit for him. Then one of them tells him that he'll be moving to the Arhat Hall instead. He yells, asking why the hell he'd be doing that, and the other freaks out too, asking if they'll have to live with a mad dog again. He's always grilled the juniors ever since they were third-class disciples. But it turns out he wants to join all the halls and learn the differences in their rules before going back to the discipline court. They say it's expected, he's obsessed with the rules. Biab Gang has worked hard to be a role model for the rest. He also spent way more time training, and his knees were constantly under tension due to this. If he didn't use internal energy, he'd experience so much pain that walking would be tough. But he didn't care as he considered it to be part of his mental training. He chose to embrace the pain. He just finished doing the horse stance for 30 minutes. He's heard rumors of Mujin, and how he's a problem child, but says he'll teach him the correct mindset a disciple should have. It jumps to the next day with the disciples freaking out that Biab Gang is standing in front of them all. They ask, and he says he'll be joining them all today. Mujin sees him, and Biab Gang laughs, saying he's looking forward to working with them all. Mujin says he's absolutely diced to the gills. He notices the second-class disciples aren't happy about him being here, but the first-class disciples have no idea who the hell he is. Mujin quickly understood what's going on, and says he must be Biab Gang, almost like they haven't been saying it for so long. They start their morning training, and the first thing up is horse stance. Biab Gang says the first thing to do is find the root problem. If he knows the problem, he can solve it. He walks behind Mujin while saying all of this, then spots him saying his legs are spread wider than his shoulders. He comments on how his posture is different, and starts to mimic the way he's doing it. He starts copying the squats he was doing and says it's not any different, and he feels the same pain as from the horse stance. He gets angry, thinking it's just a trick, and goes to say something to him. Biab Gang asks what he means, and he tells him his posture is wrong. Biab Gang asks him to explain, and Mujin realizes he'll have to teach him so much, and says he doesn't know why he's copying him, but he can hear his knees screaming with every squat, and he can't ignore this. He thinks about how it would be beneficial to have him on his side and decides to win him over since he has authority here. He tells him that copying him will just make his knees worse and asks if he can trust him and listen to how he instructs him to move. We see Biab Gang in a lunge pose, and Mujin says it's good he's flexible and says that this technique loosens the muscles in his knees. If he does this before the actual exercise, he'll be able to exercise smoothly while reducing the pressure placed on his knees. He tells him to do it for a 30-second interval, and that'll make a set, and he just needs to do it 3 times. Biab Gang asks what a set is. Mujin says. He misspoke, then notices that his knees are shaking and quickly massages it, asking if he's feeling better, but he looks visibly pained. Mujin says this is bad. If just a light touch hurts his knees, it must be insanely damaged. Biab Gang starts to calm down, and says at first it felt like someone hit his knee, but now it feels refreshing. Mujin says alright, then they were on the second round, so they should start again since training waits for no man. Biab Gang starts to wonder what kind of kid Mujin is. The other students see Mujin encouraging him, and Ha Young wonders what the hell is going on. Mujin says when his knees feel bad he just has to do this due to his nickname of being the Mad Dog. The other second-class disciples understand exactly what kind of obsessive person he is, but now they see he's being friendly, training with a new monk. We see Mujin tell him to rest a bit, then they'll do it again 15 times. Mujin explains how earlier he was doing air squats, but he shouldn't since his knees are cooked, and he needs to bend his knees just slightly to take the pressure off his knees. He says he'll summarize it, and in the sequence: first, you bend your knees slightly and slowly descend down. Second, as you go to sit you must focus on your glutes and thighs to descend rather than the knees. Third, just like step 2, only use the same parts when ascending. He asks how his knees feel, and Biob Gang says they feel fine. Mujin says that's good and to rest a little. He says he's definitely feeling less pain. Mujin says now they've done this, the next exercise will be focused on his calves. He explains that usually those with fierce appearances are often weak to friendly people. Mujin quickly compliments him, and Biob Gang laughs, saying he's been here for 18 years. The first-class disciples wonder if he's truly gone mad, and Ha-young starts to pray since his blood pressure is spiking like crazy, and he decides to ignore them for now. They start to head to get food and Mujin reminds him to make sure to do as he said before he trains to others. It looks like Biob Gang was blindly following his orders, but that isn't the case. He's decided to follow him after trying his technique by himself. This is what he's decided after receiving personal training, stretching lessons, and a massage from a top-class personal trainer. He thinks his techniques are incredible. He says they were really effective, and he experiences almost none of the usual pain he does with his knees, and he could feel the muscles on his legs stretch as he trained. He asks Mujin if it's techniques taught by his family. He asks what he means. Biob Gang explains that since his techniques are so effective he must be from an extraordinary family. He was told those techniques were passed down within Mujin's family. He smirks, saying this is a good misunderstanding. He says he did act strangely at the start, and wondered how to explain it all, but now he won't. He goes along with it. Biob Gang laughs, saying they are goat, but that his praise only applies to the treatment for his knees. They are training for martial arts, and the Shaolin is 1,000 years old. He understands Mujin's heart for his family, but it'd be great if he trained the Shaolin way too. He says he'll take note of that. Then Muyul asks if he's done. Mujin says yes and tells Biob Gang he'll see him later. Biob Gang smiles, watching him leave, and hears Ha-young clear his throat. He apologizes for being unsightly. Ha-young says he's glad he's aware. Biob Gang says the know the enemy quote, and Ha-young sighs, asking what he thinks about it. He says from what he's experienced, Mujin isn't from a martial family but rather a family of physicians. He asks him why he thought so. He continues, saying he should say this first, but his knees are all torn from the training. He didn't tell anyone as he didn't want them to worry, and more importantly, he didn't want to show his weak side. Even the juniors who trained with him for 10 years haven't noticed his knees are screwed up, but Mujin could tell right away from how he was bent, and then Mujin taught him movements that didn't hurt his knees at all. Ha-young says his family must be physicians, not a martial art family, and wonders what to do, saying the training of Shaolin is about to collapse. Biob Gang says not to worry. He's sure that he will teach Mujin the techniques of Shaolin slowly but surely, and young kids usually listen to adults they are close with instead of force. He'll get close and slowly teach him the Shaolin methods. Ha-young says all right, but to take it slow for now, and that he's counting on him. A while later in the afternoon training, we see Mujin is annoyed, saying having to do Buddhism lessons after breakfast blows, and he wonders if it's because he's young, but the food coma is real. They head to their training, and Ha-young says since they are good at the chain punch, it's time to move to the next step. One can only exert the full prowess of martial arts by combining internal and external energy, so now they'll start to prepare them on their internal energy journey. He sends out 2 disciples to demonstrate how to them all. He tells them to get into the lotus position, and Mujin wonders what's going to happen. He sees them sitting down on the floor, and they cross their legs. He says he recognizes it now. They both close their eyes and focus on breathing. He tells them to take a deep breath and let it pass through their nose and throat fully and keep breathing until it reaches their energy cores. Mujin starts to get excited, saying he can finally learn the martial arts he's been dreaming of. He says he's been getting sick of the same exercises for now, and now it's time for martial arts. He wasn't the only one excited, all of the other students were too, as it gave new reasons for them to train hard. They were all dreaming of being able to break the boulder like Ha-young too. They focused on his voice and followed the breathing patterns too, but Mujin says something about this training is weird. This marks the conclusion of the first part of this manhwa. The second part will be uploaded after there were at least 3 to 4 chapters of this manhwa released, so remember to like and subscribe to the channel for future update. Leave comments to share your experience. Looking forward to seeing you in the next video.